Life often feels like a race where no one knows the finish line. You wake up, follow an automatic routine, answer messages, try to keep up with tasks, chase results, and by the end of the day you feel like you built nothing solid. There's this silent sense of being busy without actually moving forward. That's the trap of our time. Thousands of people live tired but can't explain exactly why. They're running, but not sure if they're running in the right direction. And when they stop to reflect, they realize they have no clarity about what they truly want. This is where transformation begins. Because life doesn't change when you do more things. Life changes when you start doing the right things. What really separates an ordinary person from an extraordinary one is not talent, not luck, not even raw discipline. It's clarity. Clarity about who you are, where you're going, and what the next step truly is. And this clarity isn't found in apps or quick shortcuts, but in daily practices that shape the mind, the body, and the spirit. I decided to test a set of 12 habits on myself, not as a random checklist pulled from a self-help book, but as a real experiment put into practice every day, consistently. The results were far greater than I imagined. Small adjustments in my routine became the foundation of an entirely new life. Each habit was like a stone laid on a bridge I was building to cross the chaos. That bridge wasn't built in a single day, but stone by stone, action by action. What's surprising is that it all started with something so simple that even I didn't believe in it. Making the bed. I always thought making the bed was something for people who already had their lives in order. But making the bed first thing in the morning became my first victory of the day. In less than 5 minutes, I had proof that I could complete something. That small win triggered a greater discipline. Suddenly, skipping a workout felt like betraying myself. Leaving dirty dishes in the sink felt like breaking my own standard. I realized making the bed wasn't about organization. It was about taking control of my space and my inner state. Later, when I passed by the neatly made bed, it seemed to say silently, "Today you showed up for yourself." Small gesture, big victory. And with every small victory, something inside me started to shift. Because discipline doesn't come from grand revolutions. It comes from small choices that repeat every single day. There is no discipline that sustains itself without rituals, and in those rituals I discovered a much bigger path. Another habit that changed everything was placing spirituality before distractions. Before opening my phone, I opened the Bible. Reading one verse, sometimes 10 minutes, sometimes just 2, and then a short prayer. It didn't matter how long. This practice created an invisible foundation that no routine could replace. Because life, sooner or later, will hit you hard. The question is not if, but when. And in those moments, what keeps you standing isn't willpower, but what you anchored yourself to before the impact. I realized it doesn't matter how many habits you build if you don't have something deeper sustaining your mind and heart. What I found in scripture was a kind of clarity that no cold shower could ever bring. It was direction, a reminder that there's something greater than the noise of the world. When you start your day this way, no matter what happens, there's a voice inside that stays steady. That voice grew stronger with another habit, waking up before the world. I'm not talking about waking up at 5 a.m. to run marathons. I'm talking about waking up before the noise, when silence still reigns, when the air feels clean and time feels infinite. That silence is like a blank page waiting to be written. When I used to wake up late, I always felt behind, reacting to a day I hadn't even started. But when I woke up early, I felt one step ahead, not just of the clock, but of myself. That shift changed my entire mental state. With those 3 habits, I realized I was facing something much bigger. Life is not transformed by extraordinary events, but by daily practices that seem too small to matter. Yet repeated, they create a new structure inside of you. A made bed builds discipline. Reading scripture builds direction. Waking up early builds clarity. Together, they form a solid ground where before there was only quicksand. And that's what I want to share with you in this video. 12 habits that became pillars in my own life and can become pillars in yours. They don't require money. They don't require extraordinary talent. They only require a decision. A decision to start small and stay consistent. Before we continue, I want to ask you something simple. If this content already makes sense to you, if you feel that this kind of reflection can change the way you live your days, subscribe to this channel right now. Here, I share exactly this type of knowledge. Simple, yet profound practices that can transform your life. By subscribing, you make sure you won't miss the next videos, and you help strengthen this community of people choosing to grow with clarity and purpose. Now that you understand where it all begins, let's dive deeper, because the next habits don't just discipline your body and your mind. They expand your creativity, your clarity, and even how you relate to others. It's in this dive that you'll see the real transformation doesn't come from what you dream of becoming, but from what you practice every single day. When you start implementing simple habits, something unexpected happens. Your own mind resists. It negotiates, sabotages, tries to escape. It's almost as if your brain is afraid of losing the comfort of mediocrity. At first, it feels easy, but soon the excuses arrive. Today doesn't matter. I'll make up for it tomorrow. This inner dialogue is the real battlefield where transformation takes place. And that's when I realized the biggest enemy isn't outside, it's inside. One of the most challenging yet most rewarding habits was walking without my phone. In the beginning, it felt unbearable. How could I leave the house without music, without a podcast, without something to keep me entertained? My hand would automatically reach into my pocket, looking for the phone like an addiction. But slowly the silence began to reveal itself. Walking without distractions is an exercise in presence. At first it's boredom, but then boredom turns into clarity. Ideas that were stuck finally find space to emerge. Decisions that once felt confusing start to align. Many of my best ideas for projects, scripts, or even life decisions were born in those quiet minutes of walking alone, no headphones, just me and the landscape. Another habit that redefined my way of working was the deep work hour. Before, I used to fake productivity. I would sit in front of the computer for hours, but my mind was split between notifications, messages, and endless distractions. It was like rowing in circles. But when I committed to a single hour of absolute focus, everything changed. 60 minutes of total concentration produced more than 5 hours of fragmented effort. It was as if the brain entered a different state, a flow where nothing mattered except the task in front of me. This didn't just change what I produced, it changed who I was while I worked. I discovered that working deeply is an act of self-respect. It's choosing quality over quantity, and in the middle of all this, a simple, almost trivial habit made a surprising difference: hydration. For a long time, I underestimated the power of water, until I realized much of my fatigue, distraction, and even mood swings were tied to dehydration. When I started taking it seriously, drinking water right after waking up and keeping a bottle with me throughout the day, the difference was immediate. My mind felt clearer, my body lighter, my energy more stable. Water became a natural performance supplement. Sometimes we're not exhausted because we lack sleep, but because we lack something as simple as enough hydration. Reading daily also became part of this transformation. I set a rule: at least 10 pages a day. 10 pages may sound like little, but added up, the impact is massive. 30 days later, that's 300 pages, an entire book. 12 months later, 12 books. 3 years later, a personal library. But beyond the numbers, the true impact is on the mind. Consistent reading changes the way you think. A single chapter of a good book can reorganize your ideas more than hours of superficial online content. And here's the curious part. The more I read, the less satisfied I became with shallow distractions. A mind trained on depth begins to reject superficiality. Journaling was another habit that at first felt pointless. Just messy pages, random thoughts, no structure. But soon I understood the value of journaling is not in elegance, it's in honesty. Writing is a way to organize internal chaos. It's pouring the clutter from your mind onto paper until clarity appears. Some days, journaling felt like therapy. I would start anxious and end calm. Other days, it was nothing but a rant. But every time, there was one effect: more self-awareness, more inner space, more courage to face what I usually tried to hide behind distractions or comfort foods. Diet also came into play. Eating real food became a turning point. It wasn't about appearance, it wasn't about dieting, it was about energy. When I ate processed, industrialized food, my body felt heavy and my mind foggy. When I chose fresh, natural, colorful foods, everything shifted. Each meal became a strategy, not a punishment or indulgence. And I realized mind and body are inseparable. An inflamed body cannot sustain a clear mind. A drained body cannot maintain discipline. Eating clean was not just a health choice, it was a life choice. And here, a new conflict surfaced. Because as I changed these habits, I realized how much my environment influenced me. Discipline is nearly impossible if your room looks like a battlefield. External mess creates internal mess. When I cleaned and organized my space, my mind followed. Organizing your environment is not just about aesthetics, it's about raising your internal standards. It's about telling yourself, I deserve to live in a space that reflects clarity. But the transformation was still incomplete. Because within all these habits, there was still a voice sabotaging me, my own inner voice. Criticism, harsh words, self-sabotage. I spoke to myself like an enemy, and I realized there's no growth if you don't change the way you talk to yourself. I started treating myself with respect, speaking to myself the way a coach speaks to an athlete. The difference was profound, because your inner voice is the narrator of your story. If you live under a critical narrator, you'll live as a defeated character. But if your inner voice becomes a coach, you step into the role of protagonist in your own life. Together, these habits didn't just build discipline, they held up a mirror. They revealed my weaknesses. They showed me how dependent I was on distractions, how careless I was with my body, how harsh I was with myself. But they also showed me I could change, that each gesture, no matter how small, was a chance to rebuild myself. And perhaps the hardest truth of all emerged here. No one is coming to save you. There is no magical mentor, no wealthy friend with secrets, no instant solution. There is only you, your choices, your discipline. That daily reminder is painful, but also liberating. Because once you understand the responsibility is yours, you realize the power is too. There comes a moment when you realize it's no longer about isolated habits, but about who you are becoming because of them. The 12 habits aren't boxes to tick off each day. They are tools that reshape the way you see yourself in the world. Every small practice was like planting a seed. At first you see nothing but soil. But beneath the surface, roots are spreading. Eventually a fragile sprout appears, and much later a strong tree capable of offering shade, fruit, and protection. That tree is you. And this is where real transformation takes place. Making your bed is not about a perfectly folded sheet. It's about internal order. Reading a verse or saying a prayer is not about religion. It's about having an anchor when everything feels unstable. Waking up early is not about forced discipline. It's about having time to write your own day before the world writes it for you. Walking without your phone is not about rejecting technology. It's about reclaiming the ability to hear your own mind. Deep work is not just productivity. It's a way of honoring your intelligence. Hydrating is not only physical health, it's mental clarity. Reading 10 pages is not about consuming information. It's about teaching your mind to think long-term. Journaling is not about pretty words. It's about honesty with yourself. Eating real food is not about dieting. It's about having the energy to live fully. Keeping your space clean is not about decoration. It's about raising your personal standard. Speaking to yourself with respect is not about self-indulgence. It's about rewriting the voice that guides your life. And reminding yourself daily that no one is coming to save you is not pessimism. It's radical responsibility. The sum of all of this creates something powerful. True confidence. Not the kind of confidence that depends on external compliments or recognition, but a quiet confidence built from small victories repeated until they become your nature. The confidence that says, I can trust myself because I've proven it every single morning. This is the point where the path becomes clear. You don't need grand revolutions to change your life. You need consistency. You need a system that still works on bad days. You need habits so simple that they don't rely on motivation to get done. Because motivation fails, but rituals remain. When you create a structure of small, constant practices, the inevitable result is transformation. That doesn't mean it will be easy. There will be days of exhaustion, days when you want to quit, days when your mind tempts you with excuses. But those are the very days when habits reveal their true strength. Because they don't demand inspiration, only presence. Even when you do the bare minimum, you're still moving forward. Progress is not linear, it's cumulative. Every repetition, even imperfect, adds another layer to the foundation of who you are becoming. And maybe the deepest lesson of all is this: discipline is not a prison. Discipline is freedom. When you master your habits, you're not restricting yourself, you're freeing yourself. You're freeing yourself from chaos, from excuses, from dependence on external forces. You're taking control of what you can control, and in doing so, you find peace in what you cannot. At the core, it all comes down to this: you're not defined by what you dream of doing, but by what you practice daily. Who you hope to become does not shape your life. Who you repeatedly choose to be does. And when those choices are aligned with clarity, purpose, and respect for yourself, the future stops being a frightening unknown and becomes the natural outcome of the seeds you're planting today. So I want you to remember this: no one is coming to rescue you, and that is the best news you'll ever hear. Because it means you already have everything you need to begin. Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, not when someone else believes in you. Now. Every choice is a chance to rewrite your story. Every habit is a brick in the construction of your future. If you've made it this far, you've already proven something important about yourself. Most people don't have the patience to listen to the end. They can't sit with depth, they run back to shortcuts and shallow distractions. But you stayed, and that's a sign. A sign that you're ready to build something bigger, to live more consciously, more disciplined, more meaningful. Before we close, let me leave you with one last reminder. Don't expect perfection. Expect progress. There will be setbacks, messy days, missed steps, but consistency always wins. If you keep showing up even slowly, you'll go further than you ever imagined. Because life doesn't change all at once. It changes every day, one action at a time. If this video brought you clarity, inspiration, or even just made you reflect on how you're living, I ask you to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. This simple gesture ensures you'll keep receiving content that can transform your journey. And beyond that, share this with someone you know who needs to hear it. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give another person is the chance to see a new path. And to make this moment special, I want to propose something. If you stayed until the end, write in the comments the phrase, "Small habits, big victories." That way, I'll know you were one of the few who remained, who chose to go deep, and who is committed to transformation. That's the power of presence. That's the power of living with intention. And starting today, that power is in your hands.